What's going on, you guys? My name's Tynots and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns. 5 mysterious anonymous tips. Number 5. Tracy and Patient was a 13-year-old girl who lived with her parents in New Zealand. One evening, she spent the day over at her friend's house. She left the friend's home at around 9:30 p.m. but never made it back. Just a day later, her body was discovered tossed into the bushes on a nearby range. Police determined that she lost her life after being strangled by her own pantyhose. Just a couple months later, a telephone counseling line received an anonymous tip from a woman who believed she had seen Tracy getting into a car with a man in a brown suit, just hours before she had disappeared. The woman from the call was never identified, and one additional call came in later that was even stranger. Police say that when Tracy's body was found, a ring that she typically wore was missing. Police began to search for the ring in hopes that it may bring them closer to finding her attacker. They released a sketch of the ring to local media, and an anonymous tip came in stating that the ring could be found in a trash bin just outside of a shopping mall. Police were apprehensive at first, but upon investigation, the ring was found. Even stranger is that the unknown caller left a slip of paper with the ring, including a series of numbers. He said that these numbers were important to the case and that he would call back later and explain their significance. He never called back, and Tracy's case remains unsolved to this day. Number 4. In May of 1994, a hotline received an anonymous call from someone who claimed to have information about 3 missing young women. The caller alleged that the 3 women, each from different states, were all being held captive in Austin, Texas. Up to this point, police had no reason to believe that any of the cases were connected. The caller also claimed that the 3 women are being kept by a man named Thomas Stewart, and that they would be transported in a white or blue van across the country. Police began a brief investigation into these allegations, yet were never able to confirm them. In fact, they discovered that this man, supposedly named Thomas Stewart, never existed. By 2014, police publicly stated that they believed one of the girls was taken out by a serial killer named Paul Rowles. The evidence they had was quite circumstantial, but would have been enough to send Paul to trial. However, Paul had passed away in prison just a year prior. To this day, police have no idea who this anonymous caller is or why all of his claims appear to have been false. All 3 women still technically remain missing and their cases are still unsolved. Number 3. Thomas Wales was a federal prosecutor from Seattle who lost his life back in October of 2001. Thomas had been working in his office when an unknown man entered his backyard and shot Thomas through a basement window. The case remained mostly untouched for years until 2006, when the FBI received a letter from a strip mall near Las Vegas, coming from someone named Gidget. The man claimed to have been a hitman and stated that he was paid by an unnamed woman to take out Thomas. According to this anonymous writer, he was desperate for money at the time and accepted the job without even learning the woman's name. The FBI believes that this unknown man is certainly related to the crime in some capacity, but are apprehensive to believe his claims of being a hitman. At the moment, the lead suspect in the case is a pilot whom Thomas had been investigating for fraud. The pilot happened to be in Seattle on the night that Thomas lost his life, and in Las Vegas on the exact time that the anonymous letter was sent out. This allegation has never been confirmed, and Thomas's case remains unsolved. Number 2. In February of 1980, a man named Michael Rosenbloom deserted his girlfriend at a gas station in Pittsburgh and drove away in her car. He informed the girl named Lisa that he would meet her at her parents' house later on that night, but was never seen again. Just a few hours later, Lisa's car was found with 2 flat tires, but police failed to report the car as being Lisa's for over 3 months, with the vehicle simply sitting on an impound lot. By July of that same year, the case got even stranger and police issued a warrant for Michael's arrest, alleging that he'd been involved in a local robbery. Yet Michael had been missing ever since the car was discovered, a fact that police had known for months. Over the coming years, Michael's father began to receive anonymous letters, stating that the Baldwin police were somehow involved in Michael's disappearance. It was discovered that in May, the local police chief asked his clerk to forge a letter, dating it in February, claiming that Lisa's car had been found. The clerk was also told to forge the signature of the officer who found it and mail the letter out to Lisa. Later on, a segment involving this strange case was covered in an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. The police chief refused to allow any of his officers to appear in the program. By 1992, 12 years later, a partial skull was found about 3 miles away from where Lisa's car was found. The case was never solved and remains cold to this day, with police denying any sort of involvement in his passing. Number 1. In the early 1970s, Donald Goines released 16 novels over the span of just 4 years, marking the peak of his career as an author. His books were works of fiction commonly involving a life of crime growing up on the streets as a young African American. Many of the stories were quite close to him, and he shared a very similar upbringing. In fact, Donald wrote his first novel while he was serving time for larceny charges. After eventually being released from prison, his book was picked up by a publishing company, and Donald began using the money to fuel an ongoing drug addiction. At the height of his career, Donald stated that he could only find the energy to write when he was high, and the publisher ultimately allowed this, though his novels were released under a pseudonym. In 1974, police received an anonymous call stating that both Donald and his wife were dead. Police went to the couple's home and discovered that Donald had been shot and his wife was found deceased on the kitchen floor. The couple's 2 children were found safe in the basement of the home, and none of the neighbors reported hearing any sort of gunshots or noise coming from the home. Despite Donald being such a successful author, his case remains entirely unsolved and police have no clues as to who may have taken his life, other than the possibility that he may have been taken out over a drug debt. Others have suggested that he may have upset someone with his novels, and one of his stories may have hit too close to home. Police aren't entirely sure, and the case remains unsolved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.